Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. This is the February meeting for the Ttcda. Welcome to everyone that's here, and thanks to all the commissioners. We have a full house today, so yay. All right, so we do have a quorum, which is fantastic. Minutes got sent out to everyone. Hopefully everybody's had a chance. I'll entertain a motion whenever someone's ready. Motion for approval in a second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. All right, first up on the list, Kalen Shekels, Sign Co. Incorporated, 1-A-25-TOS. If we can get a staff report, please.
All right, this is a request to replace an existing building sign for an office building in the Pellissippi Corporate Center. The proposed sign is for Everon. The surrounding area features a mix of office warehouse, and commercial uses. The property is zoned Technology and Business Park and Technology Overlay. The existing signage on the building was installed on the east side above the main entrance. It has an area of 18 square feet and consists of an aluminum panel directly mounted onto the building facade. The applicant intends to utilize the existing aluminum paneling by attaching a new aluminum sign face to it. The proposed sign is non-illuminated and has a white background featuring the company name in dark and light blue lettering with a flat finish. The new sign face would be attached with VHB tape and silicone adhesive, both of which are weather resistant. The sign materials are substantial and permanent in nature, and the size and placement of the signage comply with Section 4.4 of the design guidelines. Staff recommends approval of a certificate of appropriateness for a sign permit for the proposed building sign with the following condition: meeting all relevant requirements of the Knox County zoning ordinance as appropriate.
All right, any questions for staff? All right, is there anyone here representing? So, don't need to speak, but.
I'm good.
All right.
Do you have a question?
All right, no questions. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve for staff recommendation.
Second.
And we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, item number 2, Chris Morris, DK Levy, which is 2-A-25-TOS. If we get a staff report, please.
This is a request to add one monument sign and one directional yard sign to the Chelsea on Corner Store and multifamily development complex. So the surrounding area features a mix of uses ranging from office and commercial uses to single-family and multifamily developments. The property is zoned office, medical and related services, and technology overlay. Both signs would be composed of the same materials. They would have a brick veneer bases that match the veneer of the buildings and gray rough-sawn board-formed concrete faces. All lettering would be blind stud mounted into the sign faces and illuminated with LED floodlight fixtures aimed at the signs. Planned development signs are limited to 1 square foot of sign for every linear foot of road frontage, with a maximum of up to 200 square feet. The proposed monument sign would be 5 feet 8 inches tall and have an area of 96.3 square feet, which is well within the maximum allowed. It would be placed near the main driveway entrance on Cornerstone Drive, 36 feet from the right-of-way. The sign would feature the apartment name in black aluminum lettering and the address in white lettering with flat finishes. The proposed directional sign would be 4 feet 4 inches tall and have an area of 17.3 square feet. It would be placed near the secondary driveway entrance on Cornerstone Drive, 20 feet from the right-of-way. The sign would feature the development name and residential entry in aluminum lettering painted with a black flat finish. Staff recommends approval of a certificate of appropriateness for a sign permit for the yard signs with the following condition: meeting all relevant requirements of the Knox County zoning ordinance as appropriate.
All right, any questions for staff? All right, is anyone here representing? Okay, no questions for staff. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve for staff recommendation.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Nice looking sign, by the way.
It does.
All right. Next up on the list, Level Place LLC, Level Place at Cornerstone. 1 second, please. So actually, you need to take this. No. Yeah. Hold on. Do what? Hold on. Yeah, I wasn't paying any attention. Hold on. Yeah, if you would.
Okay, so it's file number 6A-24-TOG, Level Place LLC and Level Place at Cornerstone LLC, request for a building permit. If we could get a staff recommendation.
So this request is for a grading plan only, and it's for 2 parcels comprising 12 acres on Lovell Road. It's across the street from where we were just looking at. So this property is zoned CA and within the technology overlay. The CA zone is for general retail business and services, and the TO zone requires a grading plan and a building plan to be reviewed before any permits are issued. So a building plan will have to be returned to this body for review. Only a portion of the site is within the technology overlay, and that area is approximately 7.1 acres of the 12-acre property. So the proposed grading plan is aligned with section 1.2.2, which calls for grading to complement natural landforms. The proposed grading would allow the stormwater to run in the same general direction. For example, a natural depression in the land would remain, and the proposed grading smooths out part of the site to be developed, with that part of the site sloping down to meet the natural depression, further defining it as a means of stormwater. And that's kind of seen in this area here. Additionally, silt fencing will be provided, and that's within the around the required stream buffer area on the property to protect water quality. Section 1.2.3 prohibits any land disturbance until a certificate of appropriateness is issued, and land disturbance is defined as grading or vegetation removal. So other than grading from the adjacent site, which is kind of seen over here where this road is going for some multifamily behind the property, no other grading has occurred, and that grading was permitted for that multifamily. Section 1.5 pertaining to open space calls to preserve areas for aesthetics and conservation. Development in this area is not expected to impair any views since this site sits lower. There is blue line stream on the property, and water quality buffers have been preserved around that stream. The applicant has noted that vegetation on the property includes some invasive species such as pears and sausage orange trees. So while landscaping is not reviewed until the building plans come through, section 3.1.6 prohibits and calls for removing invasive species. So 0.79 acres of the property are within the hillside protection area, and the recommended disturbance is about 0.37 acres. So most of the slopes on the property in the yellow area are between the 15 and 25% range, and you can disturb about 50% of that land area. And then there's a little bit within the slopes are steeper than 25%, and the guidelines call for no disturbance in that area except for road access. So approximately 50% of the hillside area has been previously disturbed, as seen in this 1959 aerial. So We consider disturbed areas to be exempt from the guidelines since the intent in the section is to protect the natural slopes. So it's been previously disturbed, it's already been altered. So there are two waivers being requested. One is to increase the maximum disturbance area from 0.37 acres to 0.664 acres. And then the second one is to increase land disturbance within the hillside protection area on the steeper slopes that 25% or greater from 0% to 78.45%. So the recommended disturbance budget is 0.37 acres. And so you need a waiver to go anything above that. And staff is recommending approval of that because approximately half of the hillside area has already been previously disturbed. And that's seen in this image on the right. The green area has been previously disturbed more than 50%. And it's just this blue area that remains vegetated and hasn't been previously disturbed. And then there's a small portion for the second waiver. It's 0.91 acres, and those are the slopes that are 25% or greater, and that's what the second waiver is for. It's for this section right here. And staff also supports that waiver as it's minimal. The disturbance remains outside of the stream buffers, and invasive trees will be removed. So recommendation was to approve both of the waivers and the kind of three standard conditions of approval, compliance with the zoning ordinance and Knox County Engineering and Public Works. Is there any questions? Whoops.
I'm going to ask the same one I asked the last time we started talking about
Okay.
this. So once it's been disturbed, it's just all bets are off? I guess I don't understand the rule that says, if they didn't have a rule 20 or 30 years ago or 50 years ago, that now we can't abide by the current rules. Help me to understand if you could.
Yeah, we don't have any set number of years to, I guess, kind of fall back to.
So, because we're talking here 70 years ago, based on that
Right.
picture. 70 years ago, somebody did something, so that means now we can't abide, or we shouldn't abide by the rules that do have a purpose in today's age.
So we'll say the intent of the HP area is to preserve and protect natural slopes. It's no longer a natural slope once it's been previously disturbed. So they graded that for farm and made it, they altered the natural preservation or the natural slope already, so there's nothing left to preserve. It's already gone.
Except for it's
That's how we
already.
look at it.
But we know that the slope is more than 25% or the rule wouldn't apply. So there is still some slope
So
there.
I'm not debating that. So the HP area it's applied all over the county in kind of a, it's based on areas, like they fly over it with a ping and drop pings down and kind of determine the slope of the area. The stippled area that you see with the slopes is supposed to be along ridges is the intent of that. And some of those areas fall within ridges and some of them don't. Some of them fall well outside of that. And so the plan also doesn't really recognize what's been previously disturbed, what's not been previously, it's just taking pings. And so there's not necessarily a rule that says we can't look at it. It's just, that's kind of planning's interpretation. Our policy is to consider it exempt. The city definitely does consider it exempt. That's an overlay district, and so we're kind of following suit and we're looking at it that way. So we're just looking at it as the preservation of natural land and natural slopes, and this not falling under that. So if you disagree with that, you can vote accordingly, but that's just our interpretation.
No, I'm just trying to understand so that I can apply it to future things. But I guess not familiar with this particular parcel of land, and so I don't know what it looked like or what it looks like now, so that I know that, oh, but that's worth preserving. But, obviously, if the rule is we can ignore it, then, and you guys are recommending that, I just wanted to understand a bit more.
Is the applicant present?
Okay.
Yes, Ben Mullins, 550 West Main Street here for the applicant. Also have the property owner, Ruth Ellis, and our engineer, Chris Scolaher, with Adura to answer any questions. We appreciate staff's work on this. We've postponed it a few times to make sure we, worked with Ttcda and the county regarding protecting the stream with part of this, and we have their approvals as well on that. And so we'd ask that you approve this with the waivers per staff's recommendation, but happy to answer any questions.
Does anyone have any questions for the applicant?
Try to hold GPS.
I actually have a question for Patrick, because I was just unaware that Bradford pears were considered invasive vegetation, and I'm just asking why.
Oh, my, yes.
Yeah, I don't like them, just
Speaking
put that out
from an
there.
insurance perspective, we want to get rid of all of them.
Okay, but I just thought it'd be interesting for him to just elaborate a little bit as to why that species is invasive, if he would.
Sure, and from a from a landscape standpoint, they're typically considered weak-wooded, and where the joints of the limbs come into the trunk, that's just a species that in a storm event often splits and often loses limbs.
I
things
can
like
vouch for that.
that. Okay. that's
Lots
good.
of them coming down on houses and people, and, insurance claims, my number one tree will be Bradford pears.
So typically, at least in our industry, it's frowned upon to use those or continue to plant them, but in the 50s and 60s, very popular tree. Grows well, has a nice habit, but now we're reaping the benefits of that.
Well, good, because I'm highly allergic to them. I support that. That's all.
Any further questions?
I'm pulling up a photometry view on here so you guys can see the site. I drive by it, but
Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve per staff recommendation, including the 3 conditions.
Second?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you all very much.
I just want to make sure that the record reflects that the chair recused, so the vote was 6. I don't think we stated that with the recusal before he left.
I wanted to let Ms. Kohler know that during the conversation, I went ahead and emailed our Director of Engineering and Planning to include some discussion about previously disturbed areas in the hillside protection in our UDO process.
Moving on, AO Hardin Station LLC, which is 2-A-25-TOB. If we could get a staff report, please.
All right. This is a request for a 2,821 square foot parking expansion at the Shops of Hardin Valley Station Shopping Center. The surrounding area features a mix of commercial, office, and warehouse uses. This subject property is adjacent to Pellissippi Parkway on the right of way. The property is zoned general business and technology overlay. So shown on the screen is the existing layout of the shopping center. When the shopping center was originally built, it was intended to host mainly retail and office uses. However, multiple food service establishments now occupy the shopping center, which requires more parking and additional dumpsters compared to the typical office and retail uses. Dumpsters have been placed behind the main building, reducing the number of available parking spaces. Due to the number of food service establishments, the applicant seeks to add additional parking to meet this demand, which will require 3 waivers from the design guidelines. The proposed parking expansion would add 16 new parking spaces overall to the site. Expansion Area A includes 9 new parallel parking spaces on the north side of the property behind the main tenant building. Expansion Area B includes 7 new 90-degree parking stalls facing Charlevoix Road. The design guidelines allow a maximum impervious area ratio of 70%. In 2023, a waiver was granted to increase the allowable IAR to 76%. The new parking would further increase the impervious area ratio to 77.9%. The Ttcda guidelines also require a minimum of 58 parking spaces and a maximum of 102 parking spaces for the shopping center. But looking at the site based on individual uses, the 4 food and drinking establishments alone require a minimum of 106 spaces and would be allowed a maximum of 210. In 2017, the shopping center was granted a waiver to increase the maximum number of spaces allowed to 281, but only 271 were constructed. This proposed expansion would result in a total of 287 spaces, so 6 more than what has been previously approved. A 20-foot landscape parking buffer is required whenever parking is on the front or side of a building, but in 2013, the center was granted a waiver that reduced the minimum parking lot landscape buffer from 20 feet to 14.75 feet along Charlevoix Road. The location of Expansion Area B would require the landscape buffer to be reduced to 2 feet. The proposed landscaping plan shows the existing 4 large trees within Expansion Area B would be retained, and the existing fencing would be placed to screen the new parking from the right-of-way. New entryway landscaping would also be added near Expansion Area A to provide additional screening along with a canopy tree to provide shading for the new parking. Staff recommends the following actions of the required waivers from the design guidelines. 1, to approve the waiver to increase the allowable impervious area ratio from 76% to 78% in order to meet the parking demand of the site and because it would be a minimal increase. 2, to approve the waiver to increase the maximum number of allowable parking spaces from 281 to 287, as it would also be a minimal increase and to accommodate the food and service drinking establishment tenants. And 3, approve the waiver to reduce the parking lot landscape buffer along Charlevoix Road from 14.75 feet to 2 feet to meet the site's parking demand, and because Charlevoix Road is a short street with limited traffic. Additionally, there will be screening provided that is consistent with that is used around the other parking areas to ensure that the parking is still screened from the right-of-way. Staff recommends approval of this request for a certificate of appropriateness for a building permit subject to 3 conditions. The 3 conditions include installation of all landscaping as shown within 6 months, meeting all applicable requirements of the Knox County Department of Engineering and Public Works, and meeting all requirements of the Knox County zoning ordinance.
All right, questions for staff?
Nobody wants to hear this, but yes, death by 1,000 cuts here. I guess that is my question is, correct me if I'm wrong, but you said the original allowable impervious area ratio was actually 70%? Already approved to 76, and now we're going to 78, is that correct? Those are the numbers?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and that the original amount of the landscape buffer was 20 feet, we brought it down to 14.7, now we're bringing it down to 2.
Yes, that is correct.
This place needs parking badly, but I feel like the easier, Y'all, just correct me if I'm wrong, but if we give in every time they want to do that, they don't learn to not say yes to the fourth restaurant in there. I guess that's my question, and I'm all for development in my neighborhood and where I do business, because more people, more opportunity for business, all of those things, I'm for that. But it seems to me that we just, well, we said yes once, so we need to say yes again, so we need to say yes again. And I wonder if at some point in time, it doesn't make sense to say no. 2 feet. And if you could bring up that picture again, if anybody's been in that parking lot, it is so tight already, and there are so many times people hit each other, and they pull away, and they never tell anybody that they did it. You know, they need more parking. There's no doubt about it. Is this the answer? I don't know.
Other comments, questions?
Yeah, just to add to that, I would be okay with the parking in the rear. But I agree, this side parking concerns me quite a bit. So just as a suggestion for consideration by the body.
As a visual, this is one of the first things that people coming into the Hardin Valley area see. They come off the Pellissippi and head east. This is what they see, and it looks like a giant parking lot, and it's always full. It makes me sad to think that it's not going to get better, it's only going to get worse. I would agree with Kim. I feel like we shouldn't give up the buffering to try and keep some of the trees and the landscape there. There's none. I mean, there is just none in that area. And the ones in the back, fine, give them the space. Is that an option to say we approve part of it and not part of it?
Yeah, we have the option. I mean, there are things we can add stipulations as it relates to this. Because in theory, if we were okay with the first 2 recommendations with those, could these 6 spaces, and I don't know the answer to this question, could they be moved to the parallels that are at the rear? Could you move?
All the way down the back, yeah.
So,
I was looking at that same thing. It's, you easily double that number, and they're only asking for 7 on the side, so it wouldn't even go as far as, doubling on the back.
I have one of my concerns is taking something down to 2 feet on a buffer. That's
It's not a buffer anymore.
yes, correct.
Well, and I was going to say too, the turning radius, when you turn left into this development, whomever designed it right there, you can barely get 2 cars at the same time. Like, I'm wondering, can this body also state, we want to widen the entrance there? Because it bogs down, people bump each other all of the time. Further down, the first entrance,
Yeah,
right there.
right there, that one.
It is too narrow.
And-
There are
and-
trucks, you can't make that turn if there's a car waiting.
And the problem is there's often a car waiting because of the Dunkin' Donuts there and the line that goes around to the Dunkin' Donuts. And it's already such a bad situation that I think removing the buffer zone and putting those spaces is not a good option.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate. And I'm sure whenever this building was built, which I think was like 2013, something like that. So, they didn't probably envision what they have today. And now they're probably trying to deal with what they have today.
But it wasn't so bad until they brought in the 3rd and 4th restaurants.
Well, it's hard for me to tell a business person that they can't rent their space.
I'm not suggesting that we tell them they can't rent their space, but oftentimes you aren't physically able to do something you want to. Somebody read earlier that there's required spaces for the restaurant sizes, and we're not even meeting those. How did that happen?
Well, so the overall use of the site is a shopping center. And when we look at it as a shopping center use, that's how we came up with the minimum and maximum allowed parking spaces. But given how much the shopping center has changed over the years, I decided to look at those individual uses versus outside of just as a shopping center. And that's how we calculated that number of the restaurants. So they're still meeting the minimum, maximum for a shopping center.
Okay. So, restaurants don't have, or do businesses have a minimum number of parking spaces based on the type of business that they have?
Based on the use, yes.
So that was my question. Are they meeting the minimum required parking spaces when you added up all the different businesses that are in there?
So they are meeting that minimum number.
They are? Okay.
So what was their request for? It's just that they're, yes, meeting the minimums, however, they just have such a need for additional spaces. Is that the,
Yes, that was my
Reason.
understanding. Is that,
is there anyone here representing the applicant? Would you like to speak? Or, you don't have to. I'm just,
And I guess the question would be, was it considered to bring
But-
the spaces across the back?
hold on one second. If you're going to speak, I need you to come to the microphone, give us your name and your address, please.
Got me at a disadvantage.
I'm sorry.
The low man on the totem pole that I'm
That's
here
okay.
today. I'm Kim Rosen.
Could you give us your address, please?
My address,
Yes. Or your work address is fine. It's,
4,000 Pleasant Ridge Road,
All right.
37912.
thank you.
We're proposing, we did add for the curve part, a fire lane, a no parking zone to help with that entrance and that curve around to the back. I don't know if you've seen that or aware of that. To make sure that no one is parking on that side, to help someone that is going in and out around the side of the building. So that was something that was just recently added, to your point of the traffic.
So was there a specific reason, on a Friday night or a Saturday night, there's, you using other spaces for overflow parking? What is the reason for the additional spaces? What's the need?
To make sure that the employees of the businesses can park in the back of the building. There's dumpsters back there. We're trying to move the dumpsters to free up some spaces that are in the back of the building. And so that way, the employees can have adequate spaces for them behind the building. And that would free up the spaces on the front side of the building for their customers on the
So
front side.
would there be an issue with the parking spaces that are on the right-hand side of this picture that's showing the 7 spaces? If those 7 spaces were able to be moved to the rear of the building,
On the other side there.
on the other side, would that cause issue or heartburn from,
It's a good question. I'm not the engineer.
is there?
I was gonna say, there's a slope back there. The slope increases tremendously when you go further down. That I do know.
Oh, lost it.
So here's where they're proposing
Okay.
the parking, and then here's the.
Can you show the property line?
It's right there.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, there's why they didn't put them back over there.
I understand. All right. All right, do we have any other questions or comments for the applicant? All right, thank you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
I'd like to make a motion. I think. Oh, we got,
I just suddenly had a quick question. I missed it. What is the impervious cover maximum on this, and how far away are we from that? The whole site? Like, do we know?
I'm sorry, can you rephrase the
So
previous?
I'm sure I'm not using correct words. I apologize, but
They're wanting to increase it 2% from 76 to 78%, the impervious area.
that was the.
70% is the standard.
Oh, okay, and 70% is the normal, okay. I was just looking to see where there wasn't impervious cover, and it just doesn't look like a whole lot, but I guess somebody has added up that. Okay.
All right, any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve Area A, but not approve Area B. And by doing that, we would need to accept the waiver and variance number 1, which would increase the impervious area, but it would probably be less than what they're asking. But waivers 2 and 3, I don't think would be applicable anymore. That's probably not the nicest way of saying that motion, but that's what I'm trying to do.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Clarification on area A and B, is that actually how it's shown? Is it shown as A and B?
Yes, it is on the
Okay,
plans.
and A and B is correct based on what Commissioner,
Sorry. It is correct, but I'll also bring it up on the screen.
okay.
So this is, my laser is freezing. But the northern portion of the property is expansion area A, and then the proposed parking parallel to Charlevoix Road is expansion area B.
Okay. Okay, so just to make sure that we have this correct, so we have a motion and a second. We probably need to adjust the motion to something to the effect of the percentages as it relates to items 2 and 3 need to be calculated based on the removal of area B.
So we'll say they already had a 281 by the previous waiver, is that correct?
That's correct.
So they wouldn't
Yes,
need
so
that
they
at
wouldn't
all.
need that at all, so we deny waiver 2. And then waiver 3, you're denying. So I think you could say you approve parking area A, not parking area B, and you approve waiver number 1 at a percentage that accommodates area A only. And then deny 2 and 3.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah,
So we will adjust that to that wording,
okay.
all right? And do we still have a second? All right. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Do we have other business?
We have no other business.
All right.
Can I ask a question? If we turn something like that down, they can always come back and offer something different, right? I mean,
Yes,
yeah, so it's not, it may be just not now.
correct.
Okay.
All right. All right. That concludes everything. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.